How are you all liking this story of King Saul and David and Jonathan? Are you kind of working through that? Are we kind of together? Yeah? Yeah? Good. I'm looking forward to it. I want to introduce the characters real briefly before we start on the 20th chapter of 1 Samuel. We're going to begin with David. David was the shepherd boy who killed the giant, public enemy number one, Goliath. David does him in. After that, he becomes a national hero. He's so courageous, so humble. King Saul, on the other hand, is Jonathan's jealous, bitter, explosive, violent father. He is arrogant, he's a narcissist, and he's tormented by an evil spirit. That may explain why his son Jonathan doesn't like his dad as much as he likes David. Jonathan is the valiant son of King Saul. Jonathan has fought and won many battles with the Philistines. Often he does it against unthinkable odds. The people of Israel love him, but Jonathan knows that their number one guy is David because David killed the giant. But Jonathan doesn't get jealous of him. Jonathan is good with David, and they come together in a friendship, a life or death trust friendship, which is unlike almost anything I've ever seen or been a part of. Any of you have a friend that you trust your life with? That's the kind of friendship we're talking about here. Tonight's story doesn't necessarily have a happily ever after ending. Our chapter begins with David. He was a musician, right? He's a musician, and somehow he's got this gift. He can play and sing in such a way that King Saul's demonic forces are pushed down. They're no longer active, and he finds some peace. And so David is in that space. He's playing, but something happens. Do you remember what happens? Saul stands up and throws a spear at him, tries to pin him to the wall. So David runs for his life. 1 Samuel chapter 20. He is running and he is hiding from Saul. Jonathan is trying desperately to convince David to come back. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. Then David ran away from Naioth in Ramah, and he went to Jonathan and asked, "What have I done? What's my crime? How have I sinned against your father so that he's trying to kill me?" Jonathan answered, "No, you won't die. See, my father doesn't do anything without telling me first. It doesn't matter if it's very important or just a small thing. Why would he refuse to tell me if he wants to kill you?" So you see what's going on here? David's saying, "Look, your father's trying to kill me." Jonathan, his best trusted friend, said, "My dad's not trying to kill you. My dad tells me all his business. I'm the prince. What do you think?" Yeah. Saul's killed thousands. This was the song that the girls sang. Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands, right? So at the last battle, David did this amazing fighting thing. And the girls, all the beautiful girls of Israel are singing, "Yeah, Saul has killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands." Saul is just getting more and more heated. It seems like the demon is coming back. He's deranged. He's a killer. And David's saying, "Why is he trying to murder me?" And Jonathan says, "Dude, it ain't going to happen." Not going to happen. My dad's not trying to kill you. You aren't going to die. He's saying, "My father tells me everything." So how would you feel? Just think about it. Think about your best and most deeply trusted friend in this space. And you go over to their house for dinner. And you notice that the father is putting rat poison in the plate of orange chicken that he slides across the table to you. And you're thinking and so you just shovel it off to the cat. And right away the cat's just... And you're going to your friend saying, "What have I ever done against your father that he put the rat poison in my orange chicken?" And your friend's like, "He didn't try to kill you. That cat didn't die. The cat's, it ain't moving." All right, pressing on. Verse 3. Forget about the orange chicken. But David took an oath and said, "Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes, Jonathan. And your father has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Yet surely as the Lord lives and as you live, there is only one step between me and the deadly orange chicken. And your father, the king, is keeping me from you because he knows we're deep friends. So it seems like David's a little worried, like maybe Jonathan is in on it. Like maybe Jonathan's just getting close enough that he could be slipping something in his food too. He had a spear. We're not sure exactly. Verse 4, Jonathan said to David, I'll do anything you want me to do. He wants to prove that his father is not out after David's life. So David says, look, tomorrow is a new moon festival. I'm supposed to eat with the king tomorrow, but let me hide in the field until evening. It's almost like David's a little afraid. Maybe Jonathan's there to bring him back. David said, let me hide in the field. I'm not going to the monthly dinner. I'm going to stay in hiding. He says, and your father may notice I am gone. If he does, tell your dad that David begged me to let him go to his hometown of Bethlehem because every year at this time their family gathers and offers a sacrifice. If your father says, fine, I'm safe. But if he becomes angry, you can believe he wants to hurt me. So this was just a monthly banquet that the king put on. 3-day feast. Brings all these people together. He's building esprit de corps. And as it turns out, the feast is a perfect setting for a test. Jonathan can test his father to see if his father hates David and really does want to kill him or not. So David said, Jonathan, be kind to me, your servant. You've made an agreement with me before the Lord. If I am guilty, you may kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? So David's just saying, look, if you really want to, if you're here to do something about your father's plan, would you please kill me yourself? I'd rather be killed by a loving friend than tortured to death by a maniacal enemy. Jonathan answers, this is verse 9. Again, he says, no, never. It's not what's going on. I don't want to kill you. I will never kill you. If I learn that my father plans to harm you, I will warn you. David said, well, who will let me know if your father answers you unkindly? Jonathan said, he's thinking fast. Come, let's go out into the field. So Jonathan probably had, like all the king's horses and all the king's men with him, probably had some people with him. And Jonathan said, let's get away from these guys. Let's get to a place where we can talk quietly. Jonathan probably had these guys. And so away, apart from the guys, Jonathan says to David, I promise this before the Lord, the God of Israel. At this same time today, after tomorrow, at this same time of day, after tomorrow, I will find out how my father feels. If he feels good toward you, I will send word to you. I'll tell you. I'll know. But my father means, if he may mean to hurt you, and if so, I'll tell you. No, and send you away safely. I'll let you know and send you away. May the Lord punish me. He says a terrible curse on himself. May the Lord punish me terribly if I do not do this. And may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. But show me kindness, the kindness of the Lord as long as I live. Do this so that I may not die. Okay, so you see what they're going to do? They're going to figure out whether or not Saul wants to kill him. Flipping over one more to verse 19. On the third day, that's the third day of this feast, on the third day of the feast, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began. Wait at the rock of Ezel. I don't know where the rock of Ezel is. On the third day, I'll shoot 3 arrows to the side of the rock. I'll shoot as if I'm shooting them at a target, and then I'll send a boy to let him go find the arrows. I may say to him, look, the arrows are on this side of you. Bring them here. If so, you may come out of hiding. You may do this as surely as the Lord lives, because, David, you are safe. There is no danger. But if I say to the boy, look, the arrows are beyond you, if I do, you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. Remember what we have talked about. The Lord is a witness between you and me forever. So do you see the plan? He's found a way to warn David if his father's after his skin. He's found a way. So David doesn't even have to come close. He doesn't have to think it's a trap or anything. So David hid in the field, verse 24. David hid in the field, and when the new moon festival came, the king sat down to eat. He sat where he always sat, near the wall. Jonathan sat across from him, and Abner sat next to him. But David's place was empty. That day, Saul said nothing. He thought maybe something's happened to David so that he's unclean. But the next day was the second day of the month, and David's place was empty again. So Saul said to Jonathan, "Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the festival yesterday or today?" Is the plan working? Here, we'll see. Jonathan answered, "David begged me to let him go to Bethlehem. He said, 'Let me go because my family has a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. Now, if I'm your friend,'" he says, "David's telling me this, 'if I'm your friend, please let me go and see my brothers.' That's why he has not yet come to the king's table." Then Saul became very angry with Jonathan. He said, "You son of an evil and disobedient woman." Where did he come up with that curse? You said, you married her, dude. Anyway, "You son of an evil, disobedient woman, I know you are on the side of David, son of Jesse. You bring shame on yourself and your mother who gave birth to you. As long as Jesse's son lives, you'll never be king or have a kingdom. Now send for David and bring him to me. He must die." Jonathan asked his father, "Why should David be killed? What's wrong? What wrong has he done?" So the plan is working perfectly. Then Saul threw his spear at Jonathan, his own son, trying to kill him. So Jonathan knew that his father wanted to kill David. So, quick time out. Saul just threw the spear at his own son. It was probably the very same spear that he had thrown at David just days earlier, isn't it? It's amazing to think that somehow this evil on the inside was causing him not to just hate and be jealous of David, but it's now even his own son. 34, Jonathan was very angry and left the table. That second day of the month, he refused to eat. He was upset about what his father wanted to do to David. Say, here comes the final scene. It's when the two friends talk. The next morning, Jonathan went out to the field. He went to meet David as they had agreed. He had a young boy with him. Jonathan said to the boy, "Run and find the arrows I shoot." When he ran, Jonathan shot an arrow beyond him. Now, do you remember what it meant if he shot beyond the boy? It means, David, run for your life. David has to go, and then verse 37, it says, the boy ran to the place where Jonathan's arrow fell, but Jonathan called, "The arrow is beyond you still." And then he shouted, "Hurry, go quickly, don't stop." The boy picked up the arrow and brought it back to his master. The boy knew nothing about what this meant, only that Jonathan and David knew. So David and Jonathan, they both recognize now Saul the king is trying to kill him. It says, then Jonathan gave the weapons to the boy. He told him, "Go back to town." When the boy left, David came out from the south side of the rock. He bowed down, face to the ground, before Jonathan. He did this 3 times. Then David and Jonathan kissed each other. They cried together, but David cried the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace. We have promised by the Lord that we will be friends. The Lord will be a witness between you and me, between our descendants forever." Then David left, and Jonathan went back to town. So, where do we really go from here? I mean, we don't have any javelins or spears getting thrown at us, at least not that I know of. We don't have to tell a young man to shoot an arrow and then say, "No, it's way beyond you." These are all images that are trapped, they're trapped 3,000 years ago in history. But what I want to think about today is, do you have a Jonathan? You had a Jonathan girl. You just told us the story. Amazing. Do you have someone who can speak truth to you in difficult times? Do you have someone who can encourage you when you're down? Do you have someone who knows you well enough to tell tell you anything. Do you have someone with whom you are totally honest? You're confessional in that way. You let them know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because that's the way David and Jonathan loved one another. Do you have any friendships so deep and meaningful that you would cry over someone, even the guys? You'd cry over their absence. David and Jonathan cried together, but David cried the most. I'm talking about spiritual friendships, Christian friends that you would be willing to risk the status quo for, right? Risk your image, your reputation to hang out with them. Friendships. Friendships that begin to look like this piece of advice from Romans 12. It says, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, live in harmony with one another. Don't be proud, but we will be willing to associate with people of low position. Don't be conceited. Do the people you spend time with have to build your reputation? Do they have to kind of move? You have to kind of be upwardly mobile? These are questions I asked myself when I was reading this particular passage. David was still a peasant. David wasn't a king. He had no money. Jonathan had to stoop socially to reach down to David. And Jonathan's love was unshakable. He loved David more than he loved his own father, Saul. Is God placing someone in your life, and maybe their face is coming to mind? Maybe God's Spirit is bringing that person to your mind right now. Someone that you could invest in, someone that you could create a spiritual bond with, some deep love, deep and powerful life, transforming love. I met a friend it was around 1987 when I moved to Wichita, about 40 years ago. And he became a Jonathan to me. But at first, I didn't like him at all. I just thought he was so emotional. And I wanted him to be more cerebral, more logical, more thoughtful. I couldn't understand the way he communicated. I really couldn't. But the more I spent time with him, which occasionally was against my will, the more I spent time with him, the more I recognized the depth of his faith and what a profound person he was in many ways that I wasn't. And so we started kind of hanging out together. He wanted to hang out. I didn't always want to hang out with him. I didn't feel like he was raising my stock price. I wasn't really drawn to him until I thought about the truths that are represented in this story. And this has been years and years ago. I started thinking, there's something in this for me. God's Spirit, I believe, was leading me. There's something in this for me, in this friendship. It's hard to learn from people who think just like you, right? Because you just replay the same tapes. But often when you spend time with someone who's very different, they bring a new perspective to your life. It requires humility, but if you embrace it, you can learn things that you could have never got to on your own. And that's kind of the way it was with me and my Jonathan. He's now among my closest friends. He was a nurse. Here's how our relationship grew. He was a nurse. And he had decided that he was going to give his life for the purposes of treating AIDS patients in Wichita, Kansas. There was this community called Someplace Else. Everyone in Someplace Else had AIDS. And he would go in and 2-3 days a week, he would give treatments to these AIDS patients. And he called me one day. He said, I just stuck an AIDS patient. I just gave them their injection for the day. And he said, I put my syringe back in my bag and I reached in and I poked myself with the syringe. He said, I need someone to pray with me. I need someone to pray with me now. I said, go over to the church right now. He came over and we just hit our knees and prayed that God would save him from that terrible disease, and prayed that God would save the other members of this place was called Someplace Else, the other members of Someplace Else. And we prayed. It took about 30 days to get the results back from the lab, right? To find out whether or not he had this disease. We prayed all those 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, God in his kind mercies allowed my Jonathan not to have AIDS. But in that 30 days, he and I had become different. Our friendship went to a whole different level. It didn't make it worse. It made it much better, much deeper. We'd stood in the gap for this test for a long time now. He trusted me enough, and he trusted me enough to be the first call after he stuck himself. Yeah. I've thought about it, I've thought about it so much over the last 40-some years. And so who's that person for you? Do you have one? Because God will bring maturity, development, and growth into your life through that kind of a friendship that you just can't get on your own. It'll be powerful. It'll be incarnate in the flesh. I hope you have the privilege of knowing someone, a Jonathan like mine was, because he went into really dangerous spaces with people who had really rough diseases. He risked it all, and he would speak to them constantly about the love of God, the love of Jesus, as he was administering their care. Every single one of them passed away. It was before there were effective, helpful medications. So he was basically just saying a long goodbye to them in Jesus' name. It was in 1999. Next story starts in 1999. A group of us were going on a one-link trip. Can I say that out loud in here? We were going on a one-link trip. We were going to Tibet. We called it Sky High. There were 30 college students, and I was a kind of a team leader, and my Jonathan was helpful. He was like my helper. And so me and my Jonathan going in 1999, we were going to Lhasa, Tibet, and we decided we had to stay in Chengdu, China for one night. Anyone been to Chengdu? Not a lot there. We were in Chengdu, and we were in a 4-story hotel. My Jonathan and I were on the 4th story. We were hanging out one night, then we're getting on a bus, and we're going to go up through the mountains, the Himalayas, and get to Lhasa. And so, but he'd gotten food poisoning. He didn't get AIDS, but he did get food poisoning in Chengdu. I think it was the orange chicken, not sure. And I could hear him. He was in the bathroom. We kind of shared a room. He was in the bathroom most of the night, hurling. And so it was time to leave. And I don't know if you've been around China, but when the bus pulls out, the bus pulls out. And so they're honking the horn. We got 30 members. They're all on the bus. And I said, we got to go, Jonathan. We got to go now. And he's like, I can't. And so it's just like, it's happening right there. And there was this trash can in the bathroom. I said, pick up the trash can. We got to go. And he's like, and the bus drivers honk. And people are like, and they're going to leave without you. They're going to leave. And I said, come on, let's go, Jonathan. So he grabbed the trash can. And he's much taller than me. He's like 6'4", 6'5". So I was just holding the trash can, walking down the stairs. He was big, and he had to put his arm around me because he couldn't stand very good. So I'm going down the stairs, stumbling, and he's barfing into the trash can, and it's creating a mist effect. You know what I mean? Like a mist was coming, and it's just coming. Your glasses, and coming down that stairway, 1 flight and 2 flights and 3 flights and 4 flights, and then out into the bus. And it didn't stop at the bus. We took the motel's trash can, and probably never paid him back for it. And I feel like what a privilege that I've had the opportunity to walk with my friend who's walked with me for all these years in a really tough time. And he was just such a strength to the whole team when we were over in Lhasa. He got better in a couple of days. Who's that for you? Team leader didn't look too cool getting on the bus, right? When I got on the bus, they were like, you're the most horrifying thing I've ever seen, Mr. 1999. And but what a gift. It might not take exactly that form, but you know what I'm talking about. When you share in ways that are so profound and so life-changing, you recognize this is what I was made for. I was made for this kind of relationship, for this kind of love. Karen knows who this Jonathan is, by the way. I was running a singles ministry at the time of the next story. and it was a little bit after 99. And my Jonathan met a girl. She's from the Air Force. She was an Olympic swimmer, and she was as tall as he was almost. And it was a made in heaven match. And so we'd gone through that situation in Lhasa. We were there a month and came back, and he's like, I'm marrying this girl. And I said, good for you. And so I performed their wedding ceremony. They got married, and they moved to Hawaii. She was a pilot. She drove generals around, flew generals around in this big plane, a retrofitted, I think it was a KC-135. And so she flew him around, and Doug just hung out on the island. And he had gone up to the volcano one day, and he had a little Jeep. He drove up to the top of the volcano, and he was coming down. And as he was coming down, there was an oncoming vehicle with an older man in it, and the older man lost control of his vehicle. And it drifted over into Doug's lane and hit him head on. Doug suffered injuries over his whole body. Oops, sorry, Jonathan. I said the wrong. Injuries over his whole body. He says he broke one of every bone in his body. Don't know if that's true. He had to have extensive surgery. He was in the hospital 59 days. He was in a coma for a long time. I was getting married when this happened, and my wife was best friends with his wife, and my wife said, on our honeymoon, we're going to Hawaii. We're going to go visit Doug. Going to go visit your Jonathan. Doggone it. And it sheared the left and right hemisphere of his brain in such a way that he has what's called a TBI, traumatic brain injury. He can no longer function fully. And we got there. He had been in the hospital. It was the 59th day, and we got to take him home. So we took Doug home, and he began to eat. It's really hard for him to talk. It's really hard for him to hold on to an idea for a very long time. So it's just tough for him to think. And he comes to my small group every Wednesday night with like 8 of the guys. And he often can't follow the sequence of the scriptures or the verbiage. He can't follow those types of things. But he still knows how to love. And he's walked with me all these years. So now he's leading me. He gets to be my leader, and he's leading me into what it's like to be in a place of fragility. A place where you are no longer the one who's in control, even of yourself. He gets lost driving to my house. He's done it for like 6 years now. That's where we've had group. And he is still happy. He still sings worship songs. He doesn't get the words right, but maybe in some ways he does get the word right. So my question is, who's your Jonathan? Oh, or maybe the other question is, who are you Jonathan to? Because we play both roles in life, and it will take a vulnerability that you may not have experienced yet, and I just want to say, come in. Come in. Come in and be that kind of Jonathan friend to those you love. Come in and be that kind of trusting friend, that kind of friend who continuously points back to Jesus even when they've gone through something as traumatic as this kind of terrible car accident. Point people back, no matter what the cost. And there will be someone like me somewhere saying your name someday because of the way that you have inspired them. Yeah, let it be so. Encourage one another as long as it's called today. That's our job. So I want to let the worship team come forward, and you guys can strap on and get ready to go. And as they come forward, I just want to pray. And after that, I think, Sadie, you have some words for us? Right on. So let's pray and say, God, we want to thank you that you've called us to something more than just superficial, good-looking, upwardly mobile, friendships of convenience, but that you've called us to operate in our deepest consciousness, our deepest ways. You've called us to share. You've called us to be Davids and Jonathans. When life was so traumatic, when there was so much risk in their communication, they continued on. And it's been that way with me too. I thank you for this Jonathan that I've had the privilege of walking with for almost 47 years. And I want to pray that for each and every person here, an encourager, someone to spur them on, someone to not just talk about what love is, but to show love in powerful, redemptive ways. May there be healing relationships in this place, even healing among men. People who've experienced trauma made new by the confidence that they feel from a brother or a sister oozing through them, through spiritual venues, making us whole with the love that you've given us, Jesus. Let us be your hands and feet. And let us especially be your hands and feet when it comes to being a David and a Jonathan in Jesus' name.